Hi there, welcome to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. My name is Ali Beg. So what is this channel all about? The people that I'm talking to, they're not the accidental pop star. I am. It was never a path that I ever envisaged going down. I never wanted to be a pop star, but I was plucked from obscurity and I fell into it. I was once a member of 1990s boy band Bad Boys Inc. We were signed to A&M Records between 1992 and 1995. We had a number of hit records in the UK and abroad, as well as having a top 10 selling album, before we went our separate ways in the spring of 1995. I had a fleeting brush with fame, but the experience left many unanswered questions. So what's the idea behind the channel? I'm going to be talking to pop stars, both past and present, and see if we can find common ground. Now, their success and popularity may differ hugely from Bad Boys Inc., but the DNA remains the same. For this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the Accidental Pop Star, lead singer of 1990s boy band 911, Lee Brennan. 911 were hugely popular in the UK and abroad. They had a number of top 10 hits and a #1 record as well. It is testament to their friendship, their hard work and their dedication that they continue to gig together to this very day. They have just had a huge #1 hit in Vietnam. It was a collaboration with a local pop star, and the YouTube views alone are over 30 million. Welcome to the Accidental Pop Star, Lee Brennan. It's brilliant to see you, mate. It's fantastic to meet you at long last after all these years. Mate, I'm going to get straight into it. So you will never be aware of this, and you've got no reason to be aware of it, but I actually knew of you right back in the early days. When we were sort of coming towards the end of our days, I knew you guys were sort of in the background because of my Scottish connections. Right. So you obviously had a huge Scotland connection. So can you just explain that to begin with?
So Spike and Jimmy were managed by a guy in Glasgow called Steve Gilmore, and so they did a lot of gigs around kind of around Scotland, North England, and so that's the connection initially. And then when I joined the guys, we all moved up there permanently and lived in Steve's apartment in Kinnan Park was the first place we lived, and that was the Scottish connection. And he wanted us to really focus all our efforts and energy on trying to get a fan base built just in Scotland before we went down to the rest of the country.
Which you were actually very successful in doing, right?
Yeah, I think we kind of followed our manager, Steve, wanted to follow the Take That kind of model where they did a lot of school shows, a lot of school gigs and lots of under 18 gigs, as many as they could kind of pack in a weekend, that kind of thing. So that's exactly the format we kind of followed, and it seemed to work. We had a great guy working for us called Martin, who knew every postcode in the whole of Scotland, and he was like always getting the letters, opening them for us, logging all the fan base, and also kind of set up phone lines and stuff for us to have chats with the Scottish fans. So it was, yeah, I'm glad we got that connection. We've still got a big connection, which is amazing. Like, so yeah.
Well, we'll come on to the gigging and the school gigging, because obviously that's exactly the same path that we did as well. Just to go back a touch, when you joined the boys, you went in as their lead singer. First and foremost, were Spike and Jimmy totally fine with that? Did they know that was what was going to happen?
I think when we first met, which was in a burger restaurant in Carlisle, it was quite a random meeting. When we first met, Steve had said to me, we might be looking for one more guy. There might be 3 or 4 guys, we don't know yet. I think it was always in his head. It was either 3 or 4. But then when we met and he saw how well we got on and stuff like that, and I think a thing that really helped is we were all kind of the same height as well. Kind of worked for us. If we had a 6'4" guy, it would not have worked. Do you know what I mean? We're not the tallest guys in the world. So there was just something special that from that initial meeting, and Steve went, do you know what? I think let's be a little bit different. Let's go with a trio for a change. Yeah, I mean, it's a long time since there was probably a trio boy band. The Bee Gees is probably the world's most famous trio, obviously.
So I remember they were called EYC.
Ah,
Um,
yes, sorry, yeah,
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 from
great,
America, and they had a
yes.
couple of hits over here, but they were very American, and I wasn't surprised that they didn't really take off in the UK. And I always wondered if another three-piece boy band would take off. Hence why I was so interested in you, and I think you found that gap perfectly.
I think you're right. And sorry, just go back to your last question. Spike and Jimmy, with me coming in as the lead singer, I think they just wanted to um, put a group together and just go for it. I think all our initial things were let's just get together and let's
Yeah,
just go for this and see how far we can take it, basically.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think you're right. Yes, about the timing and stuff was just bang on. I think Take That had just finished as well,
Mm.
and EYC they had a couple of hits I think here, but there was definitely a gap for a performance-led boy band, which is what we were kind of. Our stage show is what sold us that initial kind of fan base, I think.
Mm. So when you guys first got together, did you actually have any records sort of pinpointed? Did you have any demo tapes in your locker or anything like that?
No, nothing at all. I remember we sat round the kitchen table at Steve's, and he said, "Right, we need to choose a cover just so we can get out there and start performing." So we went through like loads of 70s, 80s tracks and stuff like that, and some early 90s stuff. And we came up with A Night to Remember by Shalimar. That was kind of like the first one we went, actually, this would be great, wouldn't it? If it was speeded up a little bit,
Yeah.
it'd be good for a routine and stuff like that. So that was the first kind of song that came around. And Steve had a couple of demos from songwriters, but they weren't to the standard that we were looking for at that time. So yeah, we just went with a couple of covers like Bobby Brown's Two Can Play That Game as well, which
Yeah.
was a great song.
So let's go back to the gigs. So I remember so we did exactly what you guys did. We started off in schools. We would then go to a college or a university, and then make our way to an under 18 nightclub. And then once we'd finished there, we would go to the next town and do a couple of over 18 nightclubs. And I found an old itinerary the other day when I was sorting out some stuff. Lee, I swear to you, mate, we used to do 6 or 7 gigs per day, and we would do a set of 3 songs, and we were getting paid the best part of nothing for it. It was exhausting, but it worked because it built the fan base. Was that your thinking?
Yeah, exactly. That schedule kind of rings a bell with me as well, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it will with many other people that you speak to on this. Um, yes, we did about sometimes 4, 5, 6 of those kind of gigs, and Ali, I've lost the question. What was the question again?
So,
My
so
brain.
no, it's okay. So when in the early days, you did basically exactly what we did. You went out and you gigged to build a fan base. Did you do roughly what we did? We were doing 6 or 7 gigs per day. University, college, under 18 nightclub, over 18 nightclub, sort of within a region to build that fan base, getting paid basically nothing for it. But it worked because it built a fan base for us. Is that what you guys did?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly the same way. And I think we managed to maybe get our petrol paid for there and back if we were kind of venturing down south. I remember we did like some stuff around London quite a bit, but it was like straight in, do all your gigs and drive straight back and get back. You could
Yeah,
get back at 5, 6 in the morning, but it was
yeah,
just to pay the petrol. And that
yeah.
was the way we did it, like you guys. Yeah.
See, to start your, putting your set together. So before we started gigging, and we had our 3 songs that we were going to start with, we worked in the dance studios for about, oh mate, it must have been 2 or 3 months trying to perfect these routines. How long did you rehearse before you actually went out on the road?
Well, I mean, Spike and Jimmy, people who know of Spike and Jimmy, they were amazing street dancers when I
Yeah,
when I met them anyway.
yeah,
But I had 2 left feet, to be honest. I wasn't a great mover. I could do the running man quite well, actually, back in the 90s in the clubs and that when I was 18. But um, yeah, so I think we spent a good, definitely 6 months really like hammering things. I mean, we did a couple of press bits and stuff, but we hammered 6 months with me just getting used to kind of rhythms and moving and coordination and stuff like that. Spike and Jimmy were just hammering away with me to get to their style and to slowly try and get to the level that they were at.
yeah.
I mean, and I learned the routine tonight to remember. That's the first one I remember learning. And I looked stiff as anything compared to them guys. They were just so chilled and relaxed and cool. But yeah, a long time, lots of hard work. And that was the foundation of us. We weren't afraid to work work really hard at our stuff, you know.
Yeah, I always felt that that was the most important thing for us because I always felt we were very image driven. So I felt, the routines had to be absolutely bang on.
Yeah.
And we worked tirelessly, like you guys in the dance studios. Just out of interest, Lee, and you don't have to go into details here, but during this time, were you earning money? Were you making a living?
No, not at
No.
all. I don't think we were earning a penny. Again, it was just to cover costs at the start, like
Yeah.
that. And even when we learned a couple of songs, routines, and that, I think it was still just promo gigs and getting your petrol paid and your food and your hotel, maybe. So it wasn't really until we got an investor involved, which
Mm.
I can go into further down if you want, and then we started, I think, getting maybe even 50, 100 quid a week just to kind of help us. And it was like, whoa, this is cool. They were actually starting to earn money then. And that was
How,
before we got signed to Virgin as well.
okay, so how old were you during this time?
So I met the guys when I was 20, just 21.
Okay.
Uh, and we really got going probably like, I was just before my 22nd birthday was our first kind of gigs, yeah.
Okay, yeah, very much like us as well. Steve Gilmore, so I know that he worked tirelessly to
Mm.
try and get you into magazines even before you signed your record deal and all that sort of stuff. Was it a frustrating process trying to get noticed by the magazines?
It was, and as you say, he was great at just knocking on doors. He had no kind of worries about just banging on people's doors and asking anybody that, even kind of the people who were at the top, like even probably he approached Nigel Martin Smith, Take That. He wanted to know everything about the Take That stuff,
Mm.
and how they did it and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I think early on we tried to convince the likes of Smashes to get us on their road shows, and I think at first that wasn't going to happen for us. They didn't kind of bite at that point, so it was just a case of us going, listen, we think we've got something's happening here. We've got a good fan base building, so it's just a matter of time, hopefully, before people say, do you know what, the door's open, come and do something on our road shows and stuff. And um, actually, the first thing we did, and Steve blagged this, we went to the side of the stage of Radio One's clothes show in Scotland at the SEC, and we stood at the side, and the security guy was there, and Steve was like, these guys had just got together. They're based in Scotland. Any chance we can do a couple of songs? So they spoke to the guy at Radio One there who was presenting the show and stuff like that, and they said, "Okay, come back in a few hours. You can do a couple of songs." So then we went around the clothes show and we got uh, boots donated, jeans donated, vests donated,
Brilliant.
jackets. And we all looked the same. We did 2 songs. And we were just buzzing that we were on a radio on stage. It wasn't live on the radio, but just the
Yeah.
fact that that was our first little yes, it's
Yeah,
great.
that's amazing because that the path for us was almost identical. We got onto the Radio One Roadshow as the warm-up act before the show actually went live at something like 10 o'clock in the morning. So we would go on before, warm the crowd up, do a couple of songs, and then off. And it was absolutely unbelievable. We toured Scotland, Northern Ireland, the north of England, and I think that really helped us on our way as well. It's so interesting. It's almost identical to what happened.
It
Can
is.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. Can I just ask, Lee, forgive me if I haven't quite got this right, but am I correct in saying that you were unable to secure a major record deal to start with? So you had to set up your own label? Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct, and that's where
Yeah.
the guy with a little bit of investment came in for the first 2 songs. Yeah.
Okay, so can you explain that process? How did that work?
Well, I think straight away Steve probably went to the majors straight away, and they obviously weren't interested because we didn't really have any original songs, and we were just kind of doing covers. They liked the kind of the stage show that we were doing, but they wanted to hear some original stuff. So then Steve, I think Steve might have put an advert in the Glasgow newspaper, and he got a guy called John McLaughlin, who was a singer around Scotland, and I think his
Yeah.
band might wrote some songs, and he approached Steve, and Steve got him to write a couple of songs, and the first couple of songs ended up being our first kind of top 10 hits randomly, and they were just demos, and went and recorded them, and yeah, that was kind of when it all kind of seemed to change, and then we managed to get Steve approached the guy, a friend of a friend, who had a little bit of investment there, and he came on board as part of the management team then, as well as investing his money. And we set up Ginga Records. And Steve had Ginger Hay, wanted to call it Ginga Records. We're like, yeah, cool, sounds great. So yeah, the first 2 singles, the first one went in at number 38 and got played on Radio 1, Mark Goodyear's show when he's doing the countdown, and it just went from there to the second one as well, yeah.
Yeah, because you charted with obviously your first 2 singles. I think you're right, 38, and I think number 21 was the second single, so not quite top 20 hits. Still hits, but were you slightly disappointed they didn't get into the top 20?
I don't think we knew any different at the time.
Okay.
I think we were just excited that firstly, 38, we were like, oh my God. And I remember it was like, we pulled over the side of the road and we were going mental when Mark Goodyear read it out on Radio 1 and played it. And then when Love Sensation, our second one, was released, we were in a petrol station, I remember. And our manager, he said, I've just got did he get a text back then? Yes, he would have got a text back then or a call or something, yeah, on his mobile, like one of these massive mobile phones that you had back then. And he said, we're midweek, because remember we used to find out midweek chart positions. So he went, we're number 11. And we were like, oh my God, we're number 11. And then by the Sunday, it'd gone down to 21. So we're a little bit disappointed because of that. But actually, we're like, oh my God, guys, we've done this. Like, we haven't got a major record deal. This is kind of insane.
Yeah. Again, when we got our midweek chart for our debut single, if my memory serves me correct, I also think it was number 11. And it dropped all the way to, I think, number 21, very much like you. And eventually it settled at number 19. So I think what happens is the core fan base, they all buy the record in the first sort of 2 to 3 days, hence the high position for the midweek. But then it starts to tail off because everyone's already bought it. And I got to be honest, I was absolutely gutted that we only got to number 21. Yeah, I was devastated. I was expecting it to be top 15 or at least get into the top 10. It's mad, isn't it?
And is that Don't Talk About Love?
Yeah, Don't Talk About Love. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. For me, like, I mean, you won't know this. I'm not sure I've ever told you this, but yeah, I used to watch you guys, and I always used to think, I'd love to do that. I could do that. I'm sure I could be in a boy band. And you guys used to tie your jumpers around your waist and stuff like that. And I remember all that kind of stuff. And I remember I used to do that kind of stuff, as well with my mates and stuff like that. So, and I knew that song very well. And yeah, I really liked that song. And I definitely think it should have been a bigger hit than 21. Definitely.
Yeah. How did your major deal then come about with Virgin?
So after two singles, I think the word was kind of filtering down south to the majors and stuff like that, thinking, how are these guys having hits without any major TV shows, without any real kind of major label backing financially. And so we got invited. I think Steve was always constantly in touch with them, keeping them aware of what's going on. And we got invited down to do I think it was something like a Capital FM roadshow thing. It was quite a small one. It was at like a theme park somewhere. And a lady called Nikki Chapman, who you might know the name of. So Nikki Chapman was working for a PR company called Brilliant, which was Take That's PR company. And she came to watch us with a guy called Neil Ferris, he was the boss of the PR company. And they loved our roadshow, our stage show, and they loved the reaction from the fans. So they all started talking, and Neil was very much in with EMI Records, Virgin at the time. I think he got Culture Club signed and many other kind of big artists who broke through in the 80s and stuff like that. So he said to Steve, listen, Steve, you can have Virgin or EMI. Either one is going to offer a deal. And I think they were signing the Ginga label.
Okay.
So they were kind of signing. It was kind of a weird one. I don't know the ins and outs, but yeah. And it just got signed there. And from that moment on, there was kind of a big celebration. We signed on my birthday, and it was my 24th birthday we signed.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Which was just amazing. And then you knew that there was going to be a lot of, they said, you're going to be flying around the world now. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah. It's I can still vividly recall it to this day. It's such a surreal moment because up until that point, it just didn't feel real. And then all of a sudden you get this contract put in front of you, and then the realization hits you, and then all of a sudden you're in it. And I've always wondered, Lee, it's really, because I always felt it was really important that the four of us, we had a very strong bond together, because we were stepping into the unknown, and we really only had each other to support each other, if that makes sense. So how important do you think that your bond with Spike and Jimmy was just about watertight at this time, because you had to depend on each other?
I think we always wanted to keep like a circle of steel around us. We used to kind of say, I think, and just always keep focus of what we all want. Our goal is to have real success and try and just work hard. And we were very driven, very dedicated, passionate about what we were doing, and we were completely different characters, me, Spike, and Jimmy, when we were younger as well. And as everyone is in bands and stuff, so there's always got to be compromises, there's going to be arguments and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we always knew what our goal was as a team, and we kind of just really worked our backsides off to try our best to make that happen. And yeah, so watertight it was, like you say. I think it's important to really keep that tight thing in your group.
I've asked a couple of others who have been on the channel about this as well, and I want to ask you as well, Lee, because at the time, obviously, you're still relatively young. You're still in your mid-20s. So did anybody actually sit you down and say to you, right, your world is going to change. You're going to be famous. You're going to reach a certain level of fame. This is how you deal with it, and this is how you handle it. Did anybody do that for you?
No, and I guess Steve didn't know what it was all about either. Yeah. I mean, when my first ever meeting with Steve in Glasgow in his office, he just said, the band's going to be called 911. It's going to be high profile, and that meant nothing to me really. Those words were like kind of an industry word. Yeah. I was like, all right, cool. And then, and I've always said this: there's just no book about how you can handle things, because we've all had experiences before we've joined the band, and certain things will make us react to certain things, or be emotional about certain things, or there's just so many kind of variables, I think, that each person, when they go into this kind of game, that we just don't know, and it's just a learn on the job, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we never got any sort of media training or anything like that. Very much learning on the job, which obviously came with pressures. And I remember at the time when you guys were around, as an outsider looking in, Lee, and I mean this with the greatest respect to the two boys, the other lads, but it appeared that you were getting most of the attention. Most of the attention was coming your way. So how did you deal with that?
I mean, I didn't deal with the attention great. I mean, I think I was brought up as a people pleaser, really. And so I always used to want to speak to the fans as much as I could. And I had kind of security guys and management kind of pulling me away all the time, saying, listen, you can't spend too much time. We haven't got time. And also, you don't want to be spending too much time. And I was just like, and I always felt guilty when I left fans who I hadn't spoke to, and they were shouting and stuff and disappointed. So that kind of stuff affected me. But yeah, the fame side of it, really, it was just very difficult as being kind of the lead singer of a group. And I wasn't the most confident boy anyway, even before I went into the group. I just wasn't. It was kind of a dream I had, and the dream kind of came reality. And I was like, am I actually prepared for this? I'm not sure mentally I've got this strength, and especially to kind of be the lead singer of the group as well. So I did find it really, really hard to deal with. And once I closed my hotel door, I kind of could just kind of breathe and try and get myself grounded and balanced a bit, because I felt I was slowly going completely nuts.
Yeah. I tell you what I suffered with. And believe it or not, even to this day, I suffered with imposter syndrome, because I didn't come from a musical background. I didn't come from a street dancing background, and I had to learn it all on the job. I knew that I was there because of my image. I knew that, and I had to accept that, which made me double my efforts to make sure that I developed a voice. I was able to perform to a decent level with the boys, who were really good dancers as well. But I was like you. It used to really trouble me that you're going to get found out, Ali. Someone's going to find out. Someone's going to tell the newspapers that you can't be a pop star because you can't sing and you can't dance and all that sort of stuff. And it is hard because I also felt I don't know who to speak to about this. Who do I speak to about it? Who do I get it off my chest with? And I didn't want to confide in the boys because I didn't want them to think that I didn't have any confidence, because we were very confident driven, especially on stage. Do you kind of understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said you still have it to this day, and I think many people have that imposter syndrome. But when you're in that kind of spotlight, it seems to be magnified even more, and maybe more of that comes in, and that self doubt and self belief, maybe. And you know, like you said, your background was different to maybe some of the other guys and stuff like that. So I can totally understand why you would feel like that. And
Mhm.
I just had a lack of confidence. I was just a very unconfident boy, and I think I was learning I was learning technically about singing and stuff like that. So I wasn't the finished. Well, I don't think you're ever the finished product with a singing voice anyway when you're that age. But I was kind of learning on the job as well with the
Yeah.
singing and stuff like that, and the pressure of that. And I'd go in the studio. It's funny because the first time I used to sing, and I wasn't aware of any before we got kind of famous or well known. I could just sing dead naturally, and it always fine. My demo tapes actually that I sent to Steve, I listened to them only a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'm really proud of them. I think I sound really good on them, and I'm like, but then I lost the confidence when I become famous, and I felt scrutinized, and I felt
Yeah.
lots of pressure. I think that's when I started overthinking what I could actually do as a pop singer, and it affected me big time. It really did.
Yeah, the overthinking is something, again, I also struggled with. Do you know what was which I found really cool, and I'm so grateful for it, was we actually had a singing coach. He was from this amazing choir from a church in southeast England, southeast London. He was absolutely phenomenal. And when we used to do our gigs, so Matthew would sing live, and we would have a backing track, and we would just have dummy mics until the time we were able to sing live. And he would say to me, "Don't lip sync." He said, "Just boom it out." He said, "Just sing." He said, "Because the audience are going mad and they'll be screaming, so they're not going to hear you. So don't worry about it if you go off key or all that sort of stuff. Just boom it out." And my God, all of a sudden, just this voice started to appear. And it was the best piece of advice I ever got. But it was, it was just, I was so nervous every time someone would say to us, "Right, I want you to sing a cappella today, guys." And you'd be like that, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
But I would like to think that we managed to pull it off. I want to talk about the gigging. For you, because it was for me, was the gigs and the performing, was it your escape? Was it your way of just going out and just enjoying it and forgetting everything that was going around? Because I actually found the gigs a means of escape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even to this day, I think that's kind of true as well. And it's not that I want to become somebody else, but there's something about that word escape, I think, and you can kind of become an extension of maybe who you are or who you'd ideally like to be every day, kind of thing. And you can do that on stage. You can kind of be a bit grander with things. You can you can just perform and be in the moment and interact with the crowd, and it really is a buzz, isn't it? And I think that's why I love it still to this day. Just I feel like I'm a different person. And we've just been away in Vietnam, and the lady who was looking after us over there, Zhang, she's called. She kind of said, when I came off stage, she said, "You are like two or three different people." And I was like, "Oh, do you think?" She's like, "Yeah, she said, "You're very quiet and you talk very deeply when we have conversations and things." Said, then you go on stage and there's a completely different guy who's like a front man who's full of confidence and in the moment. I was like, yeah, it's true. And it's that word escapism, isn't it?
I loved the performing side of it. I kind of still miss it to this day, and it's 30 years ago, but I still kind of miss it. We'll come on to Vietnam in just a minute, because I do want to talk about that. But I do want to talk about your #1 record, because obviously you did top the charts, which was just fantastic. Can you remember what your midweek was?
Well, it was a good little story because we were kept kind of informed every single day, because the boy band Another Level,
Yeah.
They had a song out the same week as us, and we were, I think we were neck and neck all the way. They were maybe 500 ahead, then we were 1,000 ahead.
Okay.
And then I think we both did a pre-recorded Top of the Pops, and we were kind of both all in the canteen, like, all right, guys, yeah. We're all kind of looking at each other going, yeah, we're challenging you for number one, and they're probably thinking the same about us. We're like, God, who's gonna do it? And then we did it, and we were in Dublin at the time. I don't know what we do a couple of bits of promo, but we found out, and we were sat in Dublin in the hotel bar, just us three, our tour manager John, and we just had a few drinks. And the next morning we came back to the UK, and we said, listen, let's savor this moment. We walked out the plane and through the terminal, excuse me, and we just stood there and went, right, we've just landed back in the UK, and we are the biggest song in the UK at this minute in time. And it just kind of went, oh man, that's mind blowing, isn't it? And it was just incredible feeling. Like,
do you have to pinch yourself that you've had a number one record?
Oh, in our minds, we were like, God, it's taken 12. I think it took about 11 or 12 songs to get there. We were like, God, about time. We've been trying to get one for like all this time. Like, we had in two of our goals were to play Wembley Arena, headline our own Wembley Arena tour.
Yeah.
And the second goal was to have a number one. And when we got that, we've fulfilled those two goals that we wanted, and it was a great feeling. It was pinch yourself moment, and we just celebrating. All the fans were outside the hotel. There was loads of fans waiting for us when we got back to the hotel, and it was just amazing. Yeah, what a buzz.
Yeah. So I want to fast forward a little bit, because we're coming towards the end of the time. So why did you guys split up, and then why did you reform again?
Well, our label, our deal with Virgin was kind of finished. So in September '99, we'd had a number one in January '99, and in September '99, they wanted to put our fourth album out, Greatest Hits album. So we had to go and try and find a song, and we had a number 13 with our last single, and then we released the Greatest Hits. We were just doing another arena tour as well on off the back of that. And then we were told that, well, your contract runs out in, it's going to be April 2000, and it's not going to be renewed. So then there was kind of lots of like, there was a few press things starting to go on, and there was a lot of things we hadn't fell out with each other, but there was always lots of niggles. And I think we were just all tired after doing it for so long and having hardly any rest. And mentally, I was kind of shot. I was gone completely mentally. I was just not in the zone. I was just kind of, had to be wheeled, pushed around everywhere. I was just not in the zone. I wasn't in a good place with myself. I was quite low and stuff like that, which is crazy. But it was just that high and low thing, that you get obviously from what we did. And then,
Lee. So how did you come through that? How did you come through the tunnel?
Listen, it took me about 10 years after 911 first split to kind of find my way in myself again, which is kind of crazy. I do.
I get that. I get that.
I do feel I've lost a decade. I lost a decade somewhere along the line of not. I was just completely lost, actually, and I think a lot of people who do what we did do find things difficult afterwards for a while. Maybe not a decade like I did, but I was definitely depressed and just lost. I had a lot of stuff to sort out from my childhood. I had cancer twice when I was younger, and I had never dealt with that. So that I think after 911, it finished in January 2000, it gave me an opportunity to go, right, I need to get some therapy going on here. And we did a tour of Asia in January 2000, and we came back and we broke up live on Chris Moyle's Radio 1 breakfast show. And that was it. We broke up because of the deal, but also I think we just needed to get away from each other and find out who the heck we were, because we'd forgotten who we were, I think, individually.
Do you know what? Despite everything that you went through, including the issues with your childhood and the personal issues that you had, which we don't need to go into details about, but I always say to people, when you come through it, you should be incredibly proud of yourself and not be afraid to actually give yourself a pat on the back, because the experiences that we go through to come through, there's only a select few folk that can actually do it, and it's incredibly difficult. And you should be very proud of yourself, mate.
I think now I can kind of happily say, yeah, I'm definitely look back and I am proud of myself. And there's, yeah, I've been through it. I kind of come through a lot of stuff, which is great and it's benefited me so much. I think I'm probably in the best space I've been the last couple of years, the best mental space I've been for probably my whole life, to be honest with you, which is great. And I'm just trying to keep on top of that and just make my life nice and simple. It's the main
Good for
thing.
you. Good for you, mate. Let's talk about Vietnam and this huge hit that you've just had over there. This massive #1 hit. I was looking at the figures. Oh, mate, they're absolutely mind blowing. It's cool. It's so cool. But can I tell you? It's not as cool as getting a name check on Coronation Street this week.
Did you? Oh, we've never had that. I know. I've had some. I think we've had something played in the Rovers, yeah, but not a name check. That's cool.
Mate, my phone lit up like Blackpool eliminations the other night.
Brilliant.
I'll quote the dude, the actor, whoever he is. I've never watched Coronation Street. And he said, obscure 1990s boy band Bad Boys Inc. Obscure.
I bet you were like, what?
Glad to see the legend is living on.
Obscure. What a word.
What a word. And then he went like that. As if we've ever done a dance move like that.
What was the whole thing about then?
I've got no idea. Apparently one of the characters had our poster on her wall when she was a teenager.
Right.
I think that was the context of the scene anyway. So
okay, that's kind of cool.
More importantly, let's get back to Vietnam. How did that collaboration come together? Because that chap, whose name I cannot pronounce, from what I understand, he's the Vietnamese equivalent to Robbie Williams. So you've done unbelievably well to get him on board.
Yeah, he's a big star over there. So you pronounce it. You don't say the last C on his second name. So it's Duck Foot. So you don't pronounce the C, or else it becomes something that we all know. So, which a lot of people have asked me about. How do you pronounce it? And I was like, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
No, that.
Steady.
So what happened was in August 2022, we went over to Vietnam for a couple of gigs with A1 and Blue, a big festival over there called Hey Fest. And when we did a sound check the day before the show, we came off the side of the stage and there was a couple of girls waiting to meet us. And so we said hello, got some pictures, signed a couple of things. And she said, people love I Do here from 10 years ago when they first heard the song. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, well, if anyone wants to kind of do it. And she went, all right, well, hopefully I'll chat to you soon. And then we did the gig and the whole crowd was singing I Do, the version where Jimmy just sings the whole song from 10 years ago. And it's like, wow, this is insane. And people were proposing actually at the side of the stage when we were singing this song.
Really?
It's a total wedding song, obviously, like I Do. And so and then I got a message on Facebook Messenger of the girl who we met side the stage, and she said, do you mind meeting me for coffee in the morning before you fly back to the UK? And I was like, yeah, cool, I don't mind meeting you for coffee. So I met she's called Zhang. I met her in the hotel bar, had a coffee and had a 2-hour chat with her. And I got to know that she's the owner of a big PR company out there, a marketing company, does lots of brands and stuff like that. And so she started telling me about the market and how she feels that 911 could kind of be reinvented again, kind of thing. And she's telling me how big YouTube is, like absolutely huge in Asia. Yeah. And Instagram, a lot of people have it, but it's not really a focus thing. And I was really intrigued because I've always been interested in marketing anyway. And then I left her, and then she started sending messages to when I got back to the UK about her ideas. And to be honest, and I've said this to her as well, I was in such a weird headspace last summer. I was just kind of I wasn't great at being focused with lots of things, and I had a lot of stress going on. So I didn't get back to it all the time. I was like, oh, listen, I'm so busy. So then Spike kind of took over chatting to her, and it kind of worked out that between them, then he came back to us and he said, listen, Zanger's got an idea to have a guy called Duckfoot, who's big over there, to do a collaboration of we do it English and Vietnamese, and we shoot a real high quality video in Vietnam. And you've got a couple of gigs, and in our minds, we're just going to do a couple of gigs and release a song. And I never thought anything was going to happen really that much. Little did we know. So
it's got
that is it. It's incredible. And she's the girl who brought us over.
Really fantastic.
Yeah.
See this whole sort of, you know, when you guys came back together, the sort of the reunion and all that sort of stuff, and what you do now. So right up to now, have you noticed a noticeable difference in the way that you are with each other from when you were all those years ago?
Yeah, I think the words respect. We've got a lot more respect for each other, and we just respect that we are different kind of guys, and also I think we've individually done work on ourselves, which has just enhanced that kind of respect. And we have a really good laugh every time we meet and do gigs and stuff. Now we can actually really just have a good laugh, no stress, and we just really enjoy it. And it is great after a few weeks when you haven't seen them, and you kind of walk into the dressing room, it's like, hey, and then you have a couple of beers or whatever you do before your gig, and it is just good fun. And that's the main thing now. I think at our grand age of like whatever it is, you know, getting towards 50s and stuff, it's just about enjoying it all.
Do you have any ambitions left, Lee?
Well, with 911, I thought it's so difficult to kind of not make a comeback, but to kind of get records out there that are going to get real either airplay or a load of social media kind of stuff on like say YouTube and attention and stuff like that. So we've always wanted to kind of release stuff again and write maybe another album, but it's always so difficult to do that. So we just enjoyed and happy doing all the gigs and stuff, and that's why I trained to be a PT nutrition coach as well. I just wanted to try do something else on the side. I've got so many things I want to do in my life, and I've tried lots of them, and I can never focus on stuff. I've got such a crazy brain that wants to do 100 things, but never ends up doing them all because I can't focus enough on them all. But yeah.
Right, last couple of questions. So a few weeks ago, I don't know if you've seen, but the BBC have recently been showing reruns of old Top of the Pops. And a few weeks ago, one of our performances on Top of the Pops was on. And again, the phone lights up, it goes absolutely mental. I'm thinking, damn, what have I said? I must have said something on social media. And it was us basically on Top of the Pops. And it was the Walking on Air sort of Christmas song that we released. And I had never actually seen the full Top of the Pops performance. So I watched it with my wife. We were lying in bed because it was quite late by the time I got the text message. And we watched it, and she was like, do you know, you guys are actually really quite polished. She goes, you're good. She goes, I don't like the song, but you're good. And I was like, yeah, actually, this is okay, you know. But I have to be honest, when I was watching myself, I couldn't relate to myself at all. I felt like I was watching somebody else, if that makes sense. Do you ever sense that when you go back and watch your first sort of videos and performances on Top of the Pops?
Yeah, and I say this to people, the same kind of thing. I always kind of say, like, who is that young boy? Like, because I was such a lost. I can look back now and go, I was definitely a bit lost. And it's kind of weird, isn't it? That was us doing that kind of thing. It's a strange thing, isn't it? But I totally understand what you mean by that. Yeah.
Okay, if you could turn back the clock and you could have your time again and you could change anything, it could be a decision that you made or a performance that you gave or something that happened in the band, what would you like to change?
Like to change? Oh, God, that's a good one, isn't it? I would probably... We had a long time to record our first album and kind of get it to where we wanted it to be. The second album, syndrome of not having enough time because you're traveling around the world promoting and stuff like that. And I think that's probably, and that's a huge thing because it's a very important thing if you want to stay on track and try and get to the next level, you need time to get the right songs, the right kind of structure to the album and stuff like that. And I don't feel that we had that time with the second album. I thought it was just the record label wanted to just rush it out. I feel that that's what it was about, and that's the thing I'd probably change, is getting that record right. I mean, I know you're going to be chatting to you might. I won't say who it is actually. Somebody that I know you're chatting to, but I'll probably give away with the song anyway. But we had a song which was written for us for our second album. It was meant to be a first single of our second album. It was called "When the Lights Go Out." Yeah. And a lot of people know who actually recorded that song, but it was our song, and it's stuff like that got kind of taken away from us. And I don't know all the politics to it, but we were learning this song, and it was written as part 2 Body Shaking, because it was written by the same guy who wrote Body Shaking for us. And it's stuff like that you think, you know, if we did that song on the album, that would have really enhanced that album even more. And it's just little things like that. I think there was a lot of that kind of stuff. And so, yes, that's what I changed. The second album, having more time.
Okay, to finish off, and I want to finish on a high, mate. How proud are you of yourself? How proud of you of your achievements of what you've just done in Vietnam? The fact that the 3 of you are still great pals. How proud of you are of just that whole dynamic of the 3 of you still, after all this time, being great pals?
Well, really, I'm really proud of us all, actually, because we've all been through our individual journeys, as you do go through in this kind of crazy job that we do. And I think it's blown our mind what's happened in Vietnam. I mean, in 4 or 5 weeks, we've had nearly 30 million YouTube views. It was number 13 globally on YouTube Music as well, and number 1 on all the platforms over there in Vietnam. And it's blown our mind. And we said to each other when we found out how many views it was getting, then it was number 1, it was number 1 there. We were like, right, we used to sit in the bar each night in Vietnam and go, like, let's have a little celebration each night, because we've got to enjoy these moments, because this is something that we never thought would ever happen to us ever again. And it just kind of like, again, it kind of makes you even stronger as a group, I think. And I mean, we thought when we go on stage, and we always attack our performance and our crowd the way we are on stage, and that we really want to attack and put as much energy as we can on stage. So yeah, Vietnam's incredible, and it's going to be, we're going to be doing a few more things out there. Let's just say that.
Brilliant. The only piece of advice I would give you, mate, not that you need it, is now, because of where you are and the huge success you're having, take it all in. Every last little drop, take it all in. Because one of my regrets is letting stuff pass me by. Just take it in, mate, and enjoy every moment. I'm so pleased for you guys. I really am.
Well, just, as you say that, that's exactly what happened to me the first time round. Things were so manic and crazy, and I had so many of these kind of lack of self-belief and confidence that I didn't probably appreciate what we were doing. But it's hard to appreciate it also when you're having these crazy long days of hours and you're so tired, you're kind of jumping on stage to stage and studio to studio. It's hard to really sit in that moment and go, wow, we are doing this. But
yeah,
we can do that. We can do that with this Vietnam success, and we have done it so far. And we're still kind of doing it now. Even now, we're just like, wow, can you believe we're still number 1? And it's incredible. And I just love it. And I think I do the song. Me, Jimmy, and 3 other guys wrote. John McLaughlin as well, and a couple of other people wrote it in 10 years ago in Glasgow in a little studio, and Jimmy recorded it. And we didn't have any promo to kind of get it out there, but it's now got the justice that it definitely deserves. Jimmy came up with the idea of the song, and it's definitely got the justice it deserves. And I think it's a great version. And Duck Fuck over there he's kind of just helped it all just be massive. So
it's a great song. It is a great song, mate. So listen, thank you so much for coming on, Lee. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you and getting your story. I'm very grateful that you came on. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Ali.
Take care, pal. Bye-bye.
Thank you, mate.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. My thanks to Lee Brennan. If you enjoyed today's watch, I would be absolutely delighted if you would please consider subscribing to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. It doesn't cost anything, and all it does is help me build the channel as we head further into 2023. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's watch with Lee Brennan, and I'll see you very soon for a brand new episode of the Accidental Pop Star. Bye for now.